Welcome to episode 60, everybody. We are deep into the cycle of podcasting, enjoying it every day, more and more each day. It becomes more and more exciting, and shit's always happening, and life is beautiful, and I'm blessed that you guys are sitting here today listening to me talk. And you could be doing anything else with your life, but you guys are here with me, listening to me on your way to work, on your way to school, on your way to the gym, on your way back to your house after you woke up, sobering up from a long night out. On this fine Thursday, you guys are choosing to listen to me talk about the life that we all live in. Before we get into the podcast, I know it's been 4 days by now, 5 days. Sunday, it happened. Today's Thursday, so you guys are watching this. I'm filming this on Monday. But it's been like 4 or 5 days since the passing of Kobe Bryant. And I was at Virginia Tech when I got the news. Not when I got the news, like I personally got it. But I was at Virginia Tech, and I saw it on Twitter. I overheard some kids talking about it, and I couldn't believe it. So I looked on Twitter, and yes, it was true. He passed away. Him and his daughter, his 13-year-old daughter. And my first thought was, Jesus Christ, this can't be real. My second thought is the world as a collective group felt smaller, and it felt more lost. And then my third thought was his wife and his family and his kids that he has. And it was terrible. It's a nightmare. And, you know, I don't want to sound too sappy. I mean, I obviously I don't know him. But I know him in the way that all of us know him, that we have the background of speeches he said that has helped us through times, you know, watching YouTube videos, motivational videos about him, with him talking. We've seen videos and clips of him shooting threes and free throws and at all hours of the night. And if you ever played basketball as a kid, you always wanted to grow up to be like Kobe Bryant. Just an all-around winner. He was a great human being for everybody, for young people, for older people. And the fact that we lost him at such a young age of 46, it's terrible. It's sad. And, you know, all the prayers and blessings go out to his wife and his family and everybody that's around him, the whole basketball league, anyone who ever ran across him and spoke to him. Yeah, it's a hard loss, and, you know, puts things in perspective again, puts life in perspective. One thing I did want to say is, not even going to bring it up. I don't want to bring a light to it because it was so depressing, sad about what I think it was BCC did. It's one of those news outlets. They were showing they were giving a video showcasing the life of Kobe Bryant, how great of a man he was, but they used video of LeBron James, and that was just fucking sickening to see. But I don't want to bring any attention to that at all. But it did put life into perspective again. I was with my girlfriend again, and I was about to drive for 4.5 hours back home, and it just made me reprocess everything about how special it is every day to wake up and take a breath, and then go to bed and take a breath, you know, and throughout the day you can eat, you can drink, you can talk to people, you can hug people. It puts into perspective how much we all take that for granted. We all take living and communicating with other people, arguing, loving, caring, holding, kissing, crying. It puts everything into perspective, because just like that, a freak accident can go, and everything that you've known about life and all the relationships you've made and all the money you've made, and all the hearts you've touched, and all the laughter you brought to people is gone. Just like that, it's gone. A helicopter crashes, and boom, people are dead, and it puts life into perspective. And every time something tragic like this happens, there's always a moment of quietness throughout the world. There's this moment of just pure, this tranquility effect where everybody's just quiet and not as intense, and everyone's just one notch slower and more grateful for everything. And it's incredible when anybody passes away with that stature, and it's just, especially for someone like Kobe Bryant, where you think he's, godlike, like he's not going to die, and like I said, I grew up kind of watching him. I'm 23, so I watched him for as much as I could. But it was incredible watching him play and the lives he touched outside of basketball. And he was a role model for every single person that lived, But yeah, rest in peace to that guy. And I hope his wife can pull through, and I hope she knows that everybody is praying for her, and everybody appreciates what her husband did while he was on this world. And I hope safety for the kids, and I hope safety for her, and I hope safety for LA, Los Angeles, and everybody who's involved. I hope everyone pushes through, and I hope as a community, as a nation, as a world, we can all just extend this peace for a few extra days, maybe for a longer time, because God forbid, I'm sure that's what Kobe wanted. He wanted everybody to work their asses off, but also to find peace somewhere in the world. But yeah, I want to get off my high horse. I just really wanted to say that, and how incredible it is how he impacted everybody who he met, who he didn't meet, and everyone who just watched basketball. But yeah, so besides that, it was a good weekend. Had a great time. I went up to Blacksburg, and this is a city that every time I go to, I know I speak to it all the time, but it's just so peaceful. It's like that city that you don't want to leave. And not too much because of the college town, because when it comes to college activities, I tend not to partake in them too much. Like on Friday night, I had 2.5 My Car lemonades. Like, that was my alcohol consumption, and I tend not to drink ever, really. I never look forward to it. It just doesn't have a hook into me, and I don't like I get so nervous whenever my reality is altered slightly, and I feel like I'm losing a little bit of control of my world, because I already feel like reality as it is already trippy enough. I don't want it to be altered a little bit, which is strange, because I think a lot of people, at least this is from my perspective, like everything I say on this podcast, but I feel like a lot of people enjoy the consumption of alcohol because it distorts the reality, distorts the perception, whether it be pain that they're running from, or whether it just be the high they get. There's the adrenaline rush they get when everything that they know is altered just a little bit. But for me, I fear that. I like my view on the world as it is, and I don't want that changed that much at all. But back to Blacksburg, I went up there, had a few drinks Saturday, just hung out, went to the gym, woke up early, had some coffee, read my book for about an hour and a half, 2 hours with her, and we just talked and hung out. And I've been reading this book called Permanent Record, which is a book written by Edward Snowden himself, which every time I'm like, Edward Snowden, it's so hard to believe that he was able to write a book and release it to the United States. But Edward Snowden was a gentleman who actually grew up right around where I live. we went to Arundel High School, which is about 20 minutes from where I live. Arundel High School was like like not the enemies. That sounds so stupid, but like the rival school for the school I went to, South River High School. And that's in South River's in Edgewater, and Arundel's in Odenton, I believe, or Crofton. But Edward Snowden was a gentleman, and I'm only like a third of the way through the book. I'm gonna try to finish it today and then tomorrow because I've just been mowing down these books, and I'm loving so much these every book I got for Christmas has been so. I mean, I've crushed 1, 2, and then I crushed the third book, which my girlfriend has, Neurotribes, which I've talked about plenty of times on here. But I've been crushing the books, and I'm loving every single second of it. Reading is something I would say I wish I was able to find it earlier in my life, but I don't think I would have enjoyed it earlier in my life. I didn't like reading when I was younger. Dude, I don't like how this shirt is sagging, man. Like, stay back. Maybe if I could tuck it in. There you go. I hated reading when I was younger. I didn't like the idea that I couldn't read what I wanted. And I also just didn't know how to do it that well. I didn't have like the best speech in the world. Sorry about that. The dog is barking again, which is so annoying. But I didn't have like the best speech in the world. And so since I didn't have the best speech, I didn't like ever having to read because I couldn't pronounce the words. And I wasn't ever really good at reading in my head. But I've been reading this book. Anyways, I've been reading this book called Permanent Record by Edward Snowden, which is basically about his life. And it's cool, though, because everything he's talking about, Rundle High School, Crofton, the Beltway, Fort Meade, I know where Fort Meade is, D.C. in general. I know all those places. And then he starts talking about AACC, so Anne Arundel Community College, which is actually where he went to school for a few semesters. He got a job at University of Maryland, which is super cool because I've just been to all those places, and it's just neat to like read a book. And I think I went to high school with a kid. I'm not going to say his name, but his last name was Snowden. And I pulled up a side-by-side picture of both of them, and they looked identical. And I graduated in 2013, and I think they were like probably brothers, or maybe not brothers, but like cousins, because he's also from Crofton. And it was just kind of crazy. I was like sitting there. I was like, oh my God, these guys they're definitely related, right? From Crofton. They look the same last name. I was just like, what the fuck? But great book. It's really cool. And if you don't know what Edward Snowden did, basically he worked for the CIA, and he, by one way or another, which I'm not exactly clear on, so I'm not going to say it. But and once I get there, I'm going to probably tell you guys. And I hope like me talking about these books doesn't ruin everybody, because I know like people hate it when you tell them like a spoiler alert on like a movie, but I just get so excited to talk about them, so I just kind of let it loose. But he found out that the CIA was basically spying on everybody. Phone calls, listening in on the phone calls, getting all the text messages, getting all the emails for every American. And he was kind of stuck in the middle of a moral dilemma with his job and his view on if that's right or wrong. And he chose the path of telling people that the government is doing this. And that led to a lot of outrage towards him. I think it happened in the Obama administration, 2013 or 11. It was one of those years. And it led to a lot of, basically he was charged, I think he was charged with crimes. I would think so. And he had to go to Russia, or he went somewhere else for a while. But then our government found him there. So he's basically asylumed in Russia. But it's a really cool book, and I ended up getting it because he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, which I still can't believe he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. But yeah, so I've been reading that book, and it's a really good book. Do you guys? I think it was probably like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago at this point. I just want to give my 2 cents on it, and then I will stop. I won't talk about it again. But so this presidential campaign, I'm more into this one, I think, than I ever have been. I've been 18 since I was 2014, 2015, and I didn't vote for a president for the Trump administration, frankly, because I just didn't want to, and I tried to, but I went to the wrong place, and I'm an idiot in many ways, and I didn't really feel like it. Like, I didn't really feel like voting, and I know that's going to get a lot of backlash from people, but I'm most likely going to end up voting this year, and I don't really know who I'm going to vote for. But one thing that I found super fascinating was, so about a week and a half ago, Donald Trump, Joe Rogan had this woman named Barry Wise on his podcast, and she is a New York Times editor, or New York Times opinion journalist, and she does the opinion a part on New York Times, and they're talking, and they're talking about the presidential candidates. And mind you, Joe Rogan's had Bernie Sanders on his podcast. He's had Tulsi Gabbard on his podcast 2 or 3 times, but I know at least 2 times because I watched the full interview with him and her. Then he had Jocko Willink and Tulsi Gabbard on the podcast, which was really cool. And he has also had Andrew Yang on his podcast. And then I think in 2016 he had at least one presidential candidate on his podcast. I forget who it was. Anyway, so he's had like 3 presidential candidates on his podcast. And I know he said before that he's like, I'm probably going to vote for Tulsi. I'm probably going to vote for Andrew Yang. And he said, I'm probably going to vote for Bernie Sanders. And he said that, and particularly in this podcast with Barry Wise. And Bernie went ahead and took a screenshot of it, or a video capture of it, and used it as marketing for his campaign. You know, whatever, right? Who cares? And as Joe Rogan was saying it, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's awesome. Vote for Bernie. Who cares? You know, a million of other people are going to do it too, right? And I went on to Twitter, and I was falling asleep, and I saw that he had like Joe Rogan was trending. I was like, what the hell is he trending for? So last time he was trending, he said something about like a transgender UFC fighter who was a male for 30 something years and then became female and just started beating the shit out of females when he was actually a male, but was a transgender female. So I guess he's actually a female, but to me, my whole viewpoint on that was, you're beating the shit out of females who've been females since day one. You've been a female since 2 years ago. Like this is ridiculous. Like, you know, right? That's kind of ridiculous. You basically have male beating the shit out of females. It's like, I don't know, but whatever. I'm not gonna say too much on that. But Bernie went ahead and took a video of it, and he put that on his Twitter as like social media, and it went crazy. People lost their freaking minds over Bernie being supported by Joe Rogan, saying Joe was a transphobe. He hated gay people. He hated the whole LGBTQ. I don't think I'm missing a letter. Did you hear the Dave Chappelle joke about that? How he has like he's taking each letter and he's putting it he's putting them all in a car. Like, oh, we got a lesbian in the car, we got a gay person in the car, a bisexual, a transsexual, and a queer in the car. And they're all arguing with each other, and everyone's looking at the bisexual, or I don't know. You gotta look it up. It's hilarious. It's a little aggressive, but it's hilarious. And if you like comedy, you'll enjoy the bit. But it's by Dave Chappelle, so you either like Dave Chappelle or you hate him. But it was really interesting. People lost their mind. Like, people cannot. It's a weird world we live in right now, where it's almost like you have to either be on Team Red or Team Blue. And if you slip up one time, you say something that maybe you didn't fully think out, or maybe you said because you believed it, but then as you age with time, you change your opinion, or you become more matured in a topic, and you might change the way you think about something. It's almost like the world that we have constructed, or at least a world that a lot of people play in, because there's a whole world out there where people don't care about what, the they say things without worrying about when they say something, their initial reaction isn't, oh shit, I might have offended somebody. It's just they said it. But we fuck, what was I saying? Oh yeah, where you have to be on team A or team B or team 1 or 2 or blue or red, and it's led to this extreme polarization of just groups that hate each other. Because if you are this team and I'm this team, there's no middle ground. So anybody who's a middle ground, they don't have a stance on anything. So what it does is you cut the fat away from everything, and you're just left with these two extremely strong, obviously opposite opinions, and people that, like, you can't be pro Second Amendment and then be against what's it when you kill a baby, or not kill a baby, abortion. Like, you can't be pro abortion if you are pro Second Amendment. Like, you have to be, and it's like these blurred lines are not allowed to be given a chance. It's really scary. It's really scary because you start living in a world of extremes, and you can't have somebody promote somebody who maybe has a different viewpoint on something. But what happens is when you live in a world of extremes, it cuts out all nuance. It cuts out all debate. It cuts out all middle ground. And then you have just a world of just anger and chaos and people just yelling at each other without actually having intelligent conversations with each other, and without having any moments to disagree. It's like there's no such thing as disagreeing. You just fucking attack louder instead of shutting up and listening. You just attack louder and louder and louder, and you attack so loud and so aggressive that you start saying things that don't make sense, and you start hurting the other side. And then there's people on your side that look at you like, dude, you're a fucking madman. What are you talking about? Like, then you start getting into things like climate. Then you have people who are denying the climate change, and then you have people who believe the world is flat, and then you have these like crazy just ignorant, but just so I hear some of these things and I'm dumbfounded. And it's like, well, that's there not necessarily because they believe it so much. I don't personally believe that you can believe that the world is flat, but you just so badly want to go against the grain as much as possible to be recognized, and it's like that's what happens in a world of not allowing to have conversation about anything. Like, you can't have, like, it's like a running joke now that you can't have a Republican and a Democrat speaking to each other anymore. You just can't do that because there's like these like standpoints like gun control, abortion, immigration, whatever it is, that are completely opposite. It's like, no, they're not completely opposite. Like, do I believe we should have protected borders? Absolutely. But do I believe every immigrant should go back to Mexico? Absolutely not. And it's like, but you can't say that at the same time saying that you're, against abortion or pro-abortion. Like, for me, like, here's a perfect example, and I'll go out and say it right now. Am I pro-abortion? Yeah, in some ways. If you are a younger couple, or even if you're an older couple and you don't want to have a kid, and you're scared because of your age, you can't carry it to its full terms, and you're like a month or 2 months pregnant, like, I'm not going to get into it, but there's middle ground. None of these things are so like black or white. You can't have there's no such thing as not a bilateral, binary solution to gun control, to abortion, to illegal immigration, to anything. There's no yes or no, but everybody so badly wants there to be yes or no that what happens is there's just anger and disagreement all the time. And it's a really weird world that we live in. And now with social media, you don't have to have a following to be aggressive. You just have to be aggressive to be popular. You don't have to have a following to be popular. You just need to be aggressive to be popular. You just need that one tweet that goes crazy and people lose their mind. You just need to make enough noise. You just need to get underneath enough feathers to really have this sense of power, you know, and then people get power corrupt and they love it and they thrive off of it. I don't know. You know, whatever. It's crazy. It's madness. It's fucking madness. It's madness out there. I tell you, it's fucking madness out there. I don't know. It's silly. It's a silly thing we live in. But let's get into metaphysics. I sound like such a fucking nerd. No, let's get into physics a little bit. Let's start talking about the world, the world that we live in. So a few months ago, there was a pilot who flew for the Air Force. He came out. Fudge, I forgot his name. I shouldn't speak on it until I know his name. I'm not gonna remember it. I'm not gonna look it up. Shit. I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be in the way I drink the like. Do you drink soda like that? Mm-mm. I haven't ordered these planes in months, dude. But anyways, this Air Force guy came out, and he started talking about spaceships. No. He said that he saw something that he was not able to recognize. And then other people started coming out and say, yeah, we've seen this. And it was like this spaceship that flew at like 60,000 feet, and it's all caught on camera, and it's caught like on the little radar. And this thing just like whoosh, shot down to like 200 feet, they say, without having like any expulsion or anything. It's just kind of dropped down, and it was flying at doing shapes that we at the time aren't possible and still aren't possible to this day. And it was just doing crazy things. And it became so credible that it was like on major news outlets, Fox and CNN, and people were talking about it like, damn aliens are among us. And as I'm watching this, do I believe in aliens? Yeah, because I have this, there's things in the world that blow my mind out of the world, no pun intended. But there's things about the universe that make me go like, what the F? Like this idea of infinity. Infinity goes on forever. It's a number so big that we can't even understand. And we can't even understand what 10 million looks like. 10 million pencils. Like I can't even wrap my what? What does that even mean? Like how do I even conceive that? Like, okay, cool. I go back and forth from the moon like this many times. Like that doesn't, because I see the moon and it looks like it, there's things that just don't make sense. And then there's concepts of like infinity, like infinity times infinity. Excuse me. Burping from the Diet Mountain Dew. Equals infinity. But the idea of infinity goes on forever. And then there's like these theories, like I was speaking on before, of like the simulation theory, which is if humans are the most intelligent creature and we have started creating AI, artificial intelligence, and we're already doing things that are putting us into like a video game state and making us kind of go in alternate reality, when does that technology stop? Does technology stop when we change technology to basically make humans slaves to the robot, or does it stop when we blow ourselves up? Like there's so many things out there that just don't make sense. And then like there's this idea of life, like the idea of consciousness, like that you and I know of our being, and we know of our being in the future, and we know of our being in the past, and we understand what it's like to be alive. We understand when we will die, the odds of us, how long we're going to live. And there's like things like consciousness and things that we do subconsciously. There's a thing that I was thinking about, like, when your teachers used to tell us like read in your head, like the idea of reading in your head, where you're sitting there, you're not saying a word, but you're saying the words inside of your brain, but there's no vocal sound to it, and your mouth isn't moving. Maybe your tongue is moving behind your teeth a little bit, but you can read an entire thing without listening to it, which it's like your brain's talking to your brain, and that's like, that makes sense, but it's still kind of mind blowing. Anyways, I was thinking about if these are aliens. So what I'm saying is I have no ground to say I don't believe in aliens, because I'm sure they exist. I mean, you look at an octopus; those things look pretty damn alien already. There's a Harvard professor who came out with a few other scientists saying that there's a possibility, and once again we run into the issue with possibility and probability. Probability says that if anything is possible, that anything is possible, pretty much. There's always a probability of something. You got to attach a percentage to something always. Is there a percentage that what we are experiencing is just a video game to an alien? You pop the disc in, and he's just been playing it for, 5 minutes, but for us, time is translated in the same way some words are translated in different languages, and like for example, a word is so much longer in Spanish than it is in English. Is that the concept of time? Is time translated in our view as long, but in a alien's video game it's really short, but it's the same meaning, it's just a different translation? Is there a probability of that? Highly, highly unlikely, but you still have to give a percentage point to it. But there's things like that just blow my mind every day. And then I was listening to a podcast, and this gentleman was talking about a guy named David Deutsch. And David Deutsch wrote a book basically stating that since everything that we experience, everything that we do, everything that we see every day is every matter in the world, is the base of it is an atom, right? So this microphone I'm speaking into, this shirt I'm wearing, me as a person, the cells in my body, the organs in my body, the light, everything, light is coming through and showing through photons, and everything is based off an atom, right? Atoms are the building block of the world, So, but technology has allowed us to find a point in our being where we can take, we have been able to take some atoms, stem cells specifically from the embryo, and we can build organs, right? We can build these organs. We can build, there's a lady who got a bladder transport. There's a country in, I think it was, I want to say, goddamn, I gotta remember. I think it was Israel, where they were building, they made a 3D heart, but the heart can, not pump blood into the heart, but once blood's in there, it can cycle it around and stuff, and inside the heart, it can't pump it out and it can't pump it within, but once it's in there, it can spiral it all around and everything. And, we're building organs, right? We're building things. We've already built legs. We did that a long time ago, where we actually connect the nerves so that your fake leg moves just like if there's a real leg there. And there's phantom limb syndrome, where you don't feel like your arm is there even though it's there. There's these explanations to these things that I've never thought made sense, but there's explanations to them. So David Deutsch is this gentleman who says, well, I think he's a physicist out of Oxford. I gotta fact check myself. But he states in his book, I believe it was his book, or he did a lecture on it. Jesus Christ, just look him up. David Deutsch, D-A-V-I-D, Deutsch, I spelled it D-A-U-I-C-H. I listened to this on a podcast, and I'm going to read his book once I can get around to it. So I can probably sound not as much as a fucking arrogant idiot. I actually sound like I do a little bit of research before I get on this thing. David Deutsch says that if we're on this path right now where we're creating things, we're creating organs, limbs, people, clones, we're already cloning things. And if everything is made of atoms, and if atoms are the building block of the world, and so if those are the facts, you could hypothetically create a world from atoms. If you could take a machine, and this machine could spit out building blocks, atoms, and you could, if we knew enough about chemicals and using these atoms to build things, we could take the same way we used to take Legos and we would make cities out of them. You could hypothetically take these atoms and build whatever you wanted with them. You could build humans. You could build trucks. You could build a stratosphere. You could build atmosphere, and then you can even build a whole nother world. You can build these things, and it brings you to this point of, we've always, and this is just my opinion, we've always believed in God, right? People have always looked to a God for answers. We have always looked to Jesus if you're Catholic, Allah if you're, Islamic. God damn it! I hope I'm not. I don't. You're looking to different gods depending on your faith, or you're looking for a spirit, or if you were, around thousands and thousands of years ago, some civilizations still do it, but you looked at a water god, you looked at a fire god, a flower god, a tree god, nature god, whatever it was, a river god. We've always looked for gods for explanations to why the world acts the way it does, and it's like, well, if this machine, because is it possible? Absolutely. It's not that it's impossible. It's not, because we have the materials, the tools are there. It's just like if you're building a house, you need the plywood, you need the glue, you need the nails, you need the hammer, you need all these things. But until you know how to make the house, until you go to school to get the education on how to structure it the best way, until you talk to people and tell you how to do it, it's impossible. Until you branch, you go over the bridge to reach the knowledge that makes it possible. And this is something that is very important to say, to make to make a difference on. If the materials aren't there, it's impossible. But if what's holding you back is the knowledge, if we could just develop that knowledge, which we are building bladders, and the odds of us building a brain, back to probability, is very low. But is it probable? Is it possible? Yes, it is. If the tools are there, but the knowledge seems impossible. But if we could find that knowledge, we could build things. And it brings you to the idea of, well, if you could build things, if I could just put together things, if I could just put together a new brain, if I had Alzheimer's, if I could put together a new heart, if I had a heart attack, if I could just put together a new valve for my heart, if I could just put together a bladder, this, if I could just build it out of a machine, who's God? Is that God? Am I God? Are we creating God? And it's just a very interesting viewpoint to think about. Like, are we creating God? Was that the next evolution of humans? We've always been chimps. We went from chimps to blah 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 blah, and now we're this. We're this human. But is the next step above chimp, above human, where we're actually taking our organs and we're taking our world and we're using the materials we have, and we're expanding our knowledge to the point where we can take all those materials, and since we work as a collective group and we're bouncing ideas off of each other, is the next evolution of the world knowledge, instead of, it's always been knowledge, but is it going to be this point where we can take matters in our own hand, we become God, and we create things for ourselves, and we extend our life that way? But then there's the drawbacks to that. Is that going to lead to corruption in the world? If I'm 50 years old and I create a new skin for me, like I put on new skin, I grow new skin on me. If I create a new heart, if I create this, I'm back. I may be 50, but my biological clock, will be altered, because I won't have any failures to my organs, because I've already made all new ones. Can I make new bones? Probably. You're just going to end up making a new person. But then you run into this issue, and this is the thing that I think makes us human. And I think this is the thing that makes us different from dolphins, makes us different from chimps, makes us the reason why we are the top predator. Because even if you can do this, even if you can take, and this is mind blowing, and I'm going to end on this, but even if you can do all these things, you can take the materials, the structures, build the structures, you map them out, mass produce them, whatever. Some company in China builds these humans, and you can go on Amazon, you can buy a heart. You send in, you take a mouth swab, scoop out your mouth, send it in there with your DNA. They can genetically modify a perfect heart for you, just in case you need it. You put it in your freezer. But we run in this issue, or this is what makes us so unique, and this is why I think that I don't know if this would work out. The ability for us to have a conscience, the ability for us to feel a certain way. Neurochemically, you feel sadness because dopamine and serotonin or happiness, they're acting in a certain level. Yes, I get it. I understand. But consciousness. We don't know what that is. We don't know exactly if it's like a person in there playing with our brains. We don't know if it is 100% just a chemical thing. But my ability to think about, oh man, once I get off here, what happens in 20 years? Do I want to have a family by that point? Do I want to be, where do I want to be in my life? Or, oh man, I felt so bad because I didn't hold the door for that person. Or I'm right here in Davisonville, in Maryland, in my bedroom, and I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm this. I'm feeling like this hurts. This ability to think of the world as the world, you as you, but I as I, me as me as a person. Can you create that in a lab? Should you create that in a lab? And if you could, would we? And it's just a very interesting thing that David Deutsch brought up this point of, yeah, you can create the world as you see it, like Legos, like building blocks. But then I push back on, well, can you create consciousness? And I don't think you can create consciousness, because I don't think consciousness is we don't know what it is. We know what it is. It's a state of being. It's a state of feeling. It's a state of replacing me as an I. And if I'm in a group of people, I'm getting a perspective from I. The way I'm viewing the world is from I. And that's just something, I don't know. It's really fascinating to think about. But I don't know. I don't know. But, yeah. So that was episode 60. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I want to say thank you, everybody who's showing mad love. Once again, pray for Kobe and his family, and hopefully they can get through this as much as possible. I guess it's fucking brutal what they're going through. But, yeah. Thank you guys so much for all the love you show and support. It's been great 60 episodes. The next 60 are even going to be better. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you guys in episode 61. Stay blessed. Have a beautiful weekend. Be safe. I'll see you guys on Tuesday at 5 o'clock for YouTube and 7:30 a.m. on audio. Like, comment, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, guys. Thank you guys so much. I'll catch you guys later on Tuesday.